Hello there. There is mounting speculation out there that given King Charles III's apparent love of Islam, he must be a convert to that religion. Something that would put him at odds with being the defender of the faith, the Christianity of the Church of England, so putting his place on the throne at risk. And here's a quote circulating social media right now via the X account of Father Calvin Robinson. Did you know that Prince Charles has converted to Islam? Yes, he is a Muslim. I can't say more, but it happened in Turkey. Oh yes, he converted all right. When you get back home, check on how often he travels to Turkey. You'll find that your future king is a Muslim. Grand Mufti of Cyprus, 1996. So that's a quote by the Grand Mufti of Cyprus, supposedly. And it has sparked quite a bit of debate. But did you realise that this particular speculation has been going on for years, for decades? Because that's not a recent quote. As it says, this claim was made back in the year 1996. The same year, the Evening Standard wrote, "The idea of the Prince of Wales lugging around a prayer mat and turning to face Mecca 5 times a day sounds a tad unlikely. But then again, so did confessing to adultery on prime-time television a couple of years ago, so perhaps no one should be shocked by the suggestion in a forthcoming book that Prince Charles has converted to Islam." So there you have it. This has been going around for a long, long time. And then out came the book by Giles Milton called The Riddle and the Night, in Search of Sir John Mandeville, which I believe contained that quote by the Grand Mufti of Cyprus, forcing the palace to actually go and issue a press release saying, "Nonsense." So they're saying it's nonsense. And in late 1997, an article called Prince Charles of Arabia for the Middle East Forum showed how much the then Prince Charles loved the religion of Islam and quoted him as saying, "There are things for us to learn in this system of belief, which I suggest we ignore at our peril." Now, before I bring Richard in, I will say that it is claimed that King Charles's father, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, did call his son an intellectual pillow, because he always bore the impression of the last person who sat on him, or should I say, talked to him, which would explain a lot. So, Richard, what do you think about all of this?
Thank you, Jeff. Well, firstly, I would like to say that in light of Angela Rayner's new war on Islamophobia, that how wonderful Islam is, even if hypothetically I did not like or agree with the faith and many of its values and practices. So thank goodness that is not the case. And it is a religion of peace and loved as is demonstrated in Islamic countries across the world, which stand as beacons of love, peace, and tolerance. Anyway, Jeff, I am not entirely convinced that the king has converted to Islam, but at the same time, I'm not entirely convinced that he hasn't converted. What should worry people is the sheer fact that here in the 21st century Britain, there could be any ambiguity as to whether or not the monarch has converted to a different faith other than that which he presides over, and more to the point, the faith that actually legitimizes him. How is it possible that the actions of the King of England are evidently geared towards the promotion of Islam and the practice of Ramadan, whilst he remains utterly silent on Lent? That's the problem I have here, is that it's one thing to celebrate Islam. Fine, if you live in a multi-faith society, I can understand even though I may not approve, but I can certainly understand that position. But the thing is, when you then forget about the main religion, the mother religion of this country, that's a very bad look, especially at times like Lent. And that sends a very loud message to the people of Britain. And the optics on this cannot be dismissed, because both himself and his PR team are notoriously known for their detail in everything that is released and done in the name of the monarch. So, I mean, unless, of course, the king is so complacent that he no longer believes he has to observe and celebrate the practices of the Church of England, thus utterly removing any legitimacy of himself as king. The fact that his recent enthusiasm seems to be towards Islam, and Islam quite specifically, suggests there is more than just a reported fondness for Islam. And instead, there appears to be a deliberate focus on a religion that the king is, I don't know. I mean, is he... Here's the question. Does he actually think he's going to be Muslim and Christian at the same time? Which, incidentally, is a position that neither religion accepts in their doctrines, because both fall under the banner of apostasy, with one sharing, quite a potentially fatal outcome. So no, this is all hot air, as we know. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it's all rubbish, Jeff. And the rest is just conspiracy theory. Hot air, load of rubbish. Over to you. Sorry, it can't be true.
Now, one thing that a lot of people seem to have missed is, who is or was this Grand Mufti of Cyprus in 1996? As I can't see sort of mention of any actual name attached. Anyway, I did a bit of Googling this morning to see if I could throw some light on this. And the only person who seems to fit the bill is someone called Sheikh Muhammad Nazim Adil Al-Kubrusi Al-Haqqani, who died in 2014, aged 92. And that's him there. That's from Wikimedia, but the Wikipedia post has an entry on this guy. He seems to sort of fit the bill. So I sort of, maybe it's him. I'm not saying it is, but otherwise I can't find any linking of a name to this particular quote. Now, this guy was a Turkish Cypriot, Al-Haqqani. He was a Turkish Cypriot who spoke English, Turkish, Arabic, and Greek, and was considered to be the 42 most influential Muslim on earth. And this also comes from Wikipedia. In 1974, he began to visit Western Europe, travelling every year to London, England, for the month of Ramadan. He gained a large following of spiritual seekers from Western Europe and North America, many of whom converted to Islam after encountering his teaching. But I can find no proof that Charles and he ever met, nor that they did not meet. But Charles has met with many spiritual leaders of that faith over the years, and I even found reference to him meeting them in the grounds of Manchester United football ground in 2010, I think it was. So, but there you go. So I can't say that the quote is real or who said it. What do you reckon, Richard?
Yeah. I mean, over the years, I've heard different rumors about King Charles and his belief system. I mean, here's an interesting one. I'm going to play devil's advocate here again. If you listen to an interview, I believe it was by, good grief, what was his name? John Tavener, the composer, brilliant composer. He knew King Charles, and he said that actually King Charles's fondness is more towards the Orthodox faith, which I thought, well, that's quite interesting. It would, again, delegitimize him because he is meant to be, crowned by God via the Church of England. But I don't know. There's too many things going on here. I mean, there's a lot of speculation. But as I said earlier, rumors are rumors, okay? The sheer fact, though, that he has missed out Lent, that screams to me. In fact, the entire British establishment, it just turned its back on Christian festivals and Christian feasts. There's just no mention of it. And I find that very concerning. Very concerning that the king of this country is not there with an ashen cross on his forehead, standing in front of the camera. Yet he is there preparing. I don't know if you saw that video of him preparing dates for people. I think is when they break their fast, and for Ramadan. And look, we have to be very careful what we say here. If he wants to do that, then that's entirely up to him. And that does say that, of course, it's a multi-faith society and etc., etc. But, please, there is more than one religion in the United Kingdom, Your Majesty. And it's about time that you recognize that. Otherwise, it's time for you to go. Sorry, goodbye, tutty bye.
Yeah. Yes, it is rather concerning that when it was pointed out to me, I thought surely he's mentioned Lent, but he hasn't, not on the royal family page of X, Twitter. There's nothing there about it. And I thought that's a bit strange. His church actually the Church of England managed to put out something about it on the 5th, was that on Wednesday, about Lent. But most of it, the day before, they were harping on about the planet. Now, when you think about religion, the most important thing is God, not the planet. But it seems that all our domestic religions are now pointing towards everything but God being important. And that should tell you a lot about where our own religion is going. And where there's a gap, where there's no God, some other God will come in. It always happens. And we're allowing it to happen via the back door because we're told that we must be secular, that we must not believe in anything other than the science. And look where that got us recently in the health emergency, and look where it's taking us with net zero. So, it does concern me when we start taking God out of everything. And someone did point out earlier about this. Do you remember the big red portrait? Do you remember that? The big red portrait of Charles? Everybody remembers that. And you look at that and you sort of go, ooh, something not quite right there. Doesn't look very Christian to me, but that's just me.
Yes, but Jeff, isn't King Charles descended from directly, I believe, from Muhammad? There's a lot of evidence to point that way. There's quite a bit of literature on the internet if anybody wants to go out there and Google it. And also apparently from King David. So he could be quite a unifying figure, which eschatologically has raised a few eyebrows with people. I think it was what was the book? The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, I think it was called.
Right.
So quite interesting stuff there. I don't know. Again, lots of speculation. But if he has converted, if the King of England has converted to Islam, we are now in a very different country. We knew we were anyway. And it would explain a lot, wouldn't it, really, towards recent events? I mean, I can't say if it's right or wrong. Also, I have noticed that the establishment, including Keir Starmer, was very much gushing over Islam, which I'm sure, is fair enough if it's a multi-faith society. But it just seems to be all focusing on one religion, and I find that a little concerning. In fact, I find it quite exclusionary of other faiths, in particular, the majority faith of this country. So,
yeah. And thank you to Tesbot. Thank you for your contribution. It seems that converting to Islam is so simple that perhaps he's been duped into doing so without realizing. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how you would go about converting or taking on that faith. So I'm not sure. But it's possible. I do tend towards the theory that he wants to be the person that brings all the faiths together.
Ooh.
So that they all and they all accept each other. But looking in certain parts of the world, I can't see that happening.
Well, it's impossible. It's doctrinally impossible to. If you accept one faith, we'll say hypothetically Islam, or we're just going to use Islam as an example here, okay? Then that totally means that Christ dying on the cross had no meaning, right, for salvation. Yeah. That's what it means. So you can't then be a Christian. Either you're Islamic or you're a Christian. There's no. It's not an you can't be the both together. It's either or. That's what the issue is. So yeah. That's what my thoughts are on that there,
Yeah.
Jeff. You having some technical difficulties there, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just trying to move my microphone a bit. It was sort of getting in the way. So,
Oh.
but while I was doing it, I was knocking all sorts of things over. So, so everything is a disaster. But it's out of shot, so it didn't happen.
It's out of shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
So, yeah.
but yes, there is an issue here, a major issue. I've heard a lot about this one world religion that people are trying to push, of combining Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, all three of what they call the Abrahamic religions. You see, I have a great issue with this because they're not all the same religion. When you say the Abrahamic religions, okay, they've got one thing in common: Abraham. Oh, there's a lot more than that, just Abraham. But that's what they're trying to say. We're talking of in terms of descendants. The problem I have here is that you can't make all those work together because they're all saying different things. Okay, one is saying, two of them are saying Christ. There's no salvation via Christ. One is saying that there's, Judaism, that there's no importance in Christ. So you can't be multi-faith. And I believe in Saudi Arabia, they are building something like a religious complex, which is basically entirely there for the purpose of combining the three world religions. And there you have, I think it's just, it's quite demonic, to say the least. Sorry.
Thanks, Yam's physical catalogue of media. Thank you for your contribution. This is a Christian nation, and that's not going to stay, regardless of what they are trying to do. This is a nation, and that's a Christian nation, and that's how it's going to remain. I think it means that's going to stay at the beginning. The thing about the Christian nation is that you have to ask the difficult question: Are we a Christian nation? Just because we have crosses everywhere, and just because we go to church when there's a funeral or when there's a wedding, doesn't make us a Christian nation as such. If we don't pray regularly and we don't go to church regularly, I would argue that we're not. In fact, on a wider basis, Islam is a growing religion, whereas the Church of England is a diminishing religion.
Yes.
But I do understand that the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Christian Church are growing as people leave the Church of England. They move to another religion. And there are new people coming into the more traditional churches. They're fed up with the wokeism of the Church of England. It's just a social services set up to do net zero and pride marches and unicorns and rainbows. That's it. That's what they do. That's all they do. That's the modern church, and God doesn't seem to have much of a place in it.
Yeah, I spoke to you yesterday about this. I've been wrestling with one church that I attend because of some of the woke ideology that I've had preached at me, and I thought, I can't do this anymore. And I thought, I'm just going to leave and go to a different church, and that's it. But there is there's another point here as well, which has to be debated. And now, I obviously, anybody who's watching this who knows me, I'm completely against the woke infestation of our churches, especially in Protestantism. But the thing is, the people in that church, they are the church as well. We have to remember that the people inside the church are the church. And sometimes you feel like you're abandoning them. And I had this brought home yesterday when a lovely lady in the church, she died suddenly. And it absolutely devastated me. She came to my wedding last year, and it was incredibly upsetting. And she was just a wonderful woman. And I thought, these people are the body of Christ. That has to be remembered. These people are the church, okay? Just because right now we've got some idiot, okay, at the head of the church, so the Anglican Church, that doesn't mean that it's all over. I mean, look at what the Catholic Church has gone through for so long with their infestation of Savile types, we shall say. Yet that is growing again. Hopefully they'll weed them out. I don't know. It's very difficult. It's my leaning is, as you know, Jeff, have always been towards the Orthodox faith, where they don't have so many of these issues. But I don't know, it's difficult. You can't just walk away
Yeah.
from people. And salvation, I think, is a one-to-one with Christ. That's it. Not on the person who's
Yeah.
preaching to you. There we go.
Yeah. As Vesna Lazar says, it's conversion, I'm assuming this, to Islam is not simple. One has to study and learn, then convert. No one gets tricked into it without realizing what is happening. So it is, it's one of those things that you know what you're doing when you're doing it. And if that's the case, then, if it has happened, then questions need to be asked and answers given. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to go back to what I was saying earlier, in fact, Jeff, as well. This is something that has to be remembered as Christians, is forgiveness. It's a very difficult thing to do. Very, very difficult. As I said, I've had an issue with some of the politics and things I've heard from one church I go to. But at the same time, you have to love and pray for that priest. I find it very difficult in churches when I go, I have to say, for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons I have is that we're told to pray for our government, for our king. That's very, very difficult. That's very difficult. But we ask the wisdom comes to those people.
Yeah. When you're praying for them, you're actually praying that they come to the right conclusion.
Yes.
With God in mind.
Yes.
That's what you're praying for.
Yes.
You're not praying for them so that they can just wander off and do whatever they want. No, when you pray for your government and your armed forces or whatever it is, you're praying that they do what they do for the right reasons based in Christianity.
Oh, yes. But this comes down to my own personal sinful nature and my attitude and thoughts towards some of the people that I have to pray for. I mean, these are people I feel quite angry at, and I find it very difficult to pray for them. But you're right, it has to be done. And this should be looked at when we're looking at the entire church, whether it's the Protestant church, the Catholic church, whoever. We just got to realize that everyone in this world is fallen. Sorry if it's gone a little bit theological and religious for many of you watching this, but this is what we believe. And if you want the country of yesteryear, I keep saying this, if you want the Britain of yesteryear, then you have to be the people of yesteryear. And the people of yesteryear were Christian, okay? They actually had a faith. They didn't say, oh, we're a Christian nation. As you pointed out earlier, Jeff, very difficult to say we're a Christian country right now when people aren't going to church. People need to get to church. This is the revolution. Don't be looking at Nigel Farage. Don't be looking at reform. Don't be looking at Donald Trump as the answers. Trump, fair play, he is looking in the right direction. He's looking towards Christ and the reestablishment of Christianity in America. I wish Nigel Farage would do the same. Nick Tanconi's doing it, but whoever, just stop looking at our leaders as the full answer. Get to church, even if you don't like it. If you don't like what's been said to you, just go there and be part of the body of Christ. And hopefully, and you do have the right to say to your vicar, well, actually, I don't agree with this woke things that you're teaching here, and have a debate with that person. Have a chat. What's wrong with that? And pray for them. It's hard.
Yeah. Now, Deplorable says, I bet Diana knew something. Remember Princess Diana? Yeah, she'd known something about this. But there's also, if Meghan Markle knew anything about it, do you reckon that would have come out in her book?
Well, perhaps Harry does. I mean,
yeah.
But
why haven't they spilled it then? Or is this coming out later?
Well, maybe they're keeping their powder dry on that one. I don't know. Look, at the end of the day, we don't know if King Charles, we're not saying that King Charles has converted to Islam. We're saying that there's a lot of rumors about it. And we should be able to discuss it. And it's circulating quite intensely at the moment. And in light of recent events, it is worth talking about that there is something slightly amiss at the top of our food chain in Britain.
Yes. Thanks, Muttley, for your contribution. And he says, or she says, no amount of praying gonna save that lot. Well, yeah, there is that argument to be made as well, given some of what's been going on. And also got another one from Yam's Physical Catalogue of Media. Thank you very much. I'm a very new Christian, only been one for a week, but I've always had faith. I'm autistic and I'm anti-woke and anti-left. I like being alone, but faith helps me. Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I sort of identify with some of that. I've sort of been going to church again for a few months now, and it's something I should have done years ago. Orthodox, by the way. But there you go.
Yes, well said, Yam. Yeah.
Yes.
The thing about autistic people as well, Yam, is that the autistic brain is able to see incredible pattern recognition, and I found it quite astonishing how many Christians have started, autistic people are starting to move towards Christ. So yeah, very interesting, that one.
Yeah, here's one from DS. Catholics are growing in UK. Yes, sir. Yeah, they because the church I go to, there's always someone there to greet newcomers, and they're always talking to new people in that church. So I believe it's growing, and that is another sign of changing times. And a friend of mine who is not at all religious said, "Is the only way I'm going to save this country just going to church, whether I believe or not?" And then I said, "Well, that's a start."
Yes. At least you'll be in the right place, the right building. Even if what is being preached at you is not the right thing. As I say, there are so many times I've gone to church, various different churches, and I've heard things that I entirely disagree with in terms of the woke teachings and politics that has entered the church. But at the same time, that priest is also a brilliant theologian, and he also does deliver the gospel very, very well. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult one sometimes to be able to sit down and bite your tongue. It's like, oh, please don't say that about Trump again.
Yeah. Critical Thinking Try It is shouting at us, saying it's diminishing, presumably religion on Christian side, because white people are evolving past make-believe friends in the sky. Well, it's very hard when you look out of your bedroom window and you go out at night in the clear sky and you look up to the heavens, you look at a tree, you look at a butterfly, and you say, so this is all just one weird big accident. I don't buy that. Not one single bit. Not one bit. And try and just sort of make believe friends in the sky. A lot of people, millions, billions probably around the world, actually get a joy and a comfort out of that friend in the sky and having that friend in the sky. So I wouldn't so easily denigrate it, but that's your choice. You can make that argument.
Freedom of speech. Say, that's your right to say that. Critical thinking. Not everybody's a Christian. Not everyone's going to agree with Christianity. No. I get it. I didn't. I was the biggest critic of Christianity going. I can give you one of the best arguments you've ever heard against Christianity and its validity. But then something happened. It was a bit of a C.S. Lewis moment.
Anyway, yeah. So just going back to point is, has Charles converted? I can find no proof one way or the other. No. All I can do is look at what he does, what he says, how he approaches his commitment to defend the faith. And the point was, I heard years ago that he wanted to be the defender of the faiths, all of them, which doesn't sort of rest easy with me. But so is he? I don't know. But then I look at our prisons, His Majesty's prisons. The one particular faith is taking over completely and is being allowed to take over in those prisons. And because they're allowed to take over, there's lots of conversions going on in prison. And they're actually under duress. That's happening. We know that. So it's not a good place to be. That's why, obviously, Tommy can't be let out into the general population of the prison. He's in too much danger because he's not going to convert. So there you go. Anyway, what do you reckon, Richard?
Worrying. No, it's all very worrying, Jeff. There's so many indicators that this country is changing towards a different belief system, the one that nobody in this country signed up for. That it should become dominant in this country, and Very worrying, yeah. This is what happens when you remove Christianity, when secularism came in and just said, okay, anything goes, everything's all equal, cultural relativism and religious relativism, they're all the same thing. People across the world, we're all the same. We all have the same values. So essentially, we all believe the same thing. And then you find out, actually, that's not true. But secularism has opened the door then. So the most dominant and demanding, we'll say, in terms of the desire for people to assimilate, the most dominant religion will take over, and the strongest religion. And it is a strong religion. You must not think of Islam as being a weak religion. It isn't. It's a very, very strong and powerful religion. And in some ways, we should be jealous of the way that they have moved across the world, because we've allowed our faith, the main faith, the previous dominant faith in Europe, to just die, and we've not fought for it. And worrying times.
I mean, one of the comments earlier said, which I put up, said, "When are we going to stop talking and take action?" Action comes in many forms.
Yes.
If you want to take physical action, and you think that, I mean, I've been on, as you know, quite a few of these marches, whether they be farmers, whether it be Tommy, whether it be democracy, whatever it is, and anti-ULEZ stuff. I've been on these things. Changes not much. Nothing much changes by taking that sort of action. The thing that will change a lot will be more people actually going to church, believe it or not.
Yes.
You start filling up those pews. They will find that they'll realize, wait a minute, these people aren't going to vote for me if I support another faith. If I go out openly and support another faith against them, they're not going to vote for me. Filling up the pews is a real answer. That's a real action. Really is. And praying is a real action. Shows intent. A lot of people won't believe that, but it's true.
The most revolutionary act that anybody can do in this country is not go out with pitchforks. It's go to church, sit and listen and learn the gospel. And if you are being preached wokeism at you, please just ask the vicar at the end, please, can I hear more about Jesus? Can I hear more about salvation and Christ? Can I learn about how we got to this position? What happened in Genesis? What happened in the very beginning of the Bible and how it's led to now? Please tell me. I want to know. Be like a sponge, a demanding sponge that needs to soak up information. Like a child going, Mom, why is this? Mom, Dad, why is that? Oh, what's this? What's that? Be that in church. Go, learn. This is how we'll save not just this country, but Western civilization. It will not be saved by looking to Nigel Farage, Donald Trump. It's not going to happen. As good men as they may be or may not be. Irrelevant. If you like them or not, it doesn't matter. Just please focus on Christ, on the church.
Says Richard, you should. This is Josie McGuinness. Richard, you should lead by example and video yourself attending church on a Sunday. That would be inspiring. It's
sometimes you just see me going, biting my tongue. But no, I do attend various churches across not just Wales, but I go to England. I'm very rarely in one church at the same time because of for a few different reasons. So but yes, I do attend church, and thanks to my good lady, she is the one who gets me to go. Yeah. Because on my own, I'm too bloody lazy half the time.
And thanks, Chris Luke Zuridis, for your super sticker. Thank you very much indeed. Anyway, I think we've got to the end. And,
yes, Jeff.
There's not much more we can say on this particular subject. We can't confirm or not confirm that Charles has converted, but I watch what he does and what he says and how much interest he pays in the Church of England compared to other faiths.
Yes.
And that will balance out the truth, I think.
Yes. Whatever his motivation, let's just say there is one thing we can confirm here before we go, Jeff, and that is, on a balance of things, it looks like one faith is being prioritized over another. And as
Yes.
king, that is quite questionable, especially when he is meant to be legitimized and sustained by the one faith that he is ignoring.
Yeah.
There.
And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Goodbye.